Renanim, ¿cómo está? And hello. Welcome back to another episode of Grace Daily, hosted by Grace International Baptist Church here in Chuuk, Micronesia. Glad to have you joining us today as we continue our way through Psalm 2, a messianic psalm pointing forward towards Jesus Christ and telling us about the reign, his rule and reign over all the earth. And so, this morning we're going to be looking specifically at verse 6. We're beginning to now listen to the words of God and the psalm, and we'll get kind of into this another time, but it's important to know now. The psalm is 12 verses, and it's set up into 4 different parts. Each part is divided into 3 verses, and so, and it's chiastic. So you have the first 3 verses and the last 3 verses kind of are the bookmarks, right? They kind of fit together. And then in the inside, the middle 6 verses that are divided into 3 each, they kind of fit together, but they're separate dialogues. So the first 3 verses, it's this question, so why are the heathen raging? It's kind of presenting this, what their plan is, how foolish it really is. That's verses 1, 2, and 3. Verses 4, 5, and 6, the Lord, capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D, Yahweh, he speaks. And he presents his plan, and he says, yeah, go for it. You're going to fail. And then we're going to be reading his last words of the in verse 6. Then verses 7, 8, and 9, you have the Messiah speaking. You have the Anointed One speaking. And then 10, 11, and 12, it is kind of that bookmark. The narrator starts to speak again, and he gives us the conclusion of what we ought to do with the information that we've learned. So verse 6 says this, "Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill of Zion." I love going to the capital of the states. I love Washington, D.C. I don't really like cities, but I like Washington, D.C. It's just full of really cool history. I love going through and looking at just all of the history that's there, the architecture, there we go. And just really, it's quite an amazing thing to see the capital of our nation. And so, if you were to tell me about Washington, D.C., I would think, okay, that's a physical place, I've been there. And God says, "Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill of Zion." So I want to look at this word Zion today. Because first of all, it does refer to a physical place. David, when he became king, he went and he fought against the Jebusites in Jerusalem, and he conquered Jerusalem, and that became the city of David, Zion, and it became this hill of Zion. And then a little bit later, once Solomon built the temple on Mount Moriah, the word Zion, you can watch the transformation, kind of the expansion of the word throughout the Old Testament. Zion became known as kind of this larger Jerusalem area because God dwelled in the temple that was in Zion. And Zion was within Jerusalem, so Zion became this representation of the holy place of God. And then later on, once we kind of get into the New Testament, there's a couple of places, but Hebrews chapter 12, verse 22 really relates Zion to heaven. It comes to represent all of God, like the capital of God's dominion, Zion. And so here again, remember, this is a messianic psalm, so he's saying, I've set David on my holy hill in Zion, right? David's anointed the king. He's the one doing the ruling at this moment. But in a broader sense, God is saying, I have set my anointed one, the Messiah. I've already set him on the holy hill of Zion. And this is, I take it to be, from what I'm understanding, I take it to be Zion, yes, is this physical place, but it's also this representation of the capital of God's kingdom. That sun is really coming in and starting to blind me. It's this representation, this broader picture of all of God's rule. And so Christ now, I love the phrasing of it. Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill of Zion. It's a done deal. Christ is sitting. Christ is ruling, and we're going to look at some of that in the New Testament soon, and how we know that that's kind of when this was fulfilled. But what I want us to understand today, my friends, is this: Zion, yes, physical place, Jerusalem, but it became this broader sense, and now Christ has set on his throne on Zion, this capital of the kingdom of God. Christ is sitting there now. And Hebrews 12, another passage, the reference is slipping from my mind, but it's talking about the physical Jerusalem and how there's difficulties with it, and there's the evil that had started to happen. And then it talks about the heavenly Jerusalem is pure. And Jerusalem, Zion, right? So it differentiates between these two Jerusalems. There's the physical, earthly, and then there's the heavenly, spiritual Jerusalem. And so we know that Zion is referring many times to this broad overall capital of the kingdom of God. And so today, my friends, whatever is coming your way, whatever is difficult in your life, whatever circumstance you are facing, we have a king that is sitting on his throne in Zion. And this king cannot be touched. He cannot be moved from his throne. Zion is not somewhere that you and I can go and the evil people can conquer, because it's in heaven. And so today, rejoice, because our king sits on his throne in Zion. And because of that reason, I wish you grace and peace.